Referendum on electoral reform. We now know the Conservatives will get the first chance to get the Lib Dems on board. If they can't, then Labour will have a go. But we do have a hung Parliament now, and my colleague Rhiannon Mills has been looking at the implications of a political situation left hanging.
When the sun rose over a bright new Labour era in 1997, there was no doubt about their clear election win. 13 years on, a murky dawn and an equally murky result, with the first hung Parliament for 36 years. You have to go back to 1974 for the last one, when Conservative Ted Heath tried and failed to cling on in Downing Street before Labour's Harold Wilson took over to form a minority government. One person who's keeping a close eye on today's political map is Paul Sanderson from Anglia Ruskin University.
There's no indecision here. We're not talking about people going out in East Anglia and saying, I want a hung Parliament, I want to build consensus. This is solidly for one party. In the longer run, I think that the composition of Parliament is such that there will be instability for a considerable period, maybe for the next 3, 4, 5 years. The impact on us, I think, is not necessarily that good.
Well, here in the East, it's clearly been a one-horse race with the Tories out in front. But across the rest of the country, it's been a very different picture. And with all the different parties jockeying for position today, it's left us all wondering what's going to be that winning combination. Changing polls and the uncertain future have made this election perfect for a flutter. One bookmakers in Cambridge is already preparing new odds.
They'll be betting on the coalition government, maybe. Whether there's another election to come in the next few months, people will be betting if there's one in the next 6 months or 12, or whether Gordon Brown will be sitting there in the seat in the next few weeks. There'll probably be bets on all sorts of things coming up.
But financial experts like Professor Michael Shearer from the Essex Business School believe that we could all lose out in the long run with the economy already under pressure.
Here in the east of England, we've got lots of businesses that really do depend upon, public expenditure, lots of businesses depending on exports, etc. And I think we need to make sure that, there is certainty comes very quickly so that they can have confidence about the future.
The prospect of a hung Parliament has now prompted more calls from the Liberal Democrats for election reform.
The electoral system will not reflect how people have voted in Parliament, and that's got to change. It's a scandal, and we've got to do everything we can to force change.
Change is one thing that is guaranteed. Tonight, what form it'll take is more uncertain. But don't be surprised if you see those ballot boxes again sometime soon. Rhiannon Mills, Anglia News in Cambridge.
Well, if you want more detail, Speaker John Bercow comfortably held on to his seat in Buckingham, beating off the challenge by UKIP's Nigel Farage. Mr Farage couldn't attend the count. He's still in hospital after being injured in a plane crash in Northamptonshire yesterday. Mr Bercow polled more than 22,500 votes, getting a majority of more than 12,000. The independent candidate John Stevens came second, with Mr Farage in third place with nearly 8,500 votes.
Some thanks.
Well, all the talk has been of the hung Parliament, but there were also town hall elections for nearly 24 councils across the Anglia region.
And an interesting reversal of fortunes, with the Conservatives actually losing council seats to Labour and the Liberal Democrats there.
Maybe there's a thing or two the Westminster politicians could learn from these councils. They're all hung and in some cases have been for some time. But the Conservatives on Brentwood Council in Essex lost their overall majority by losing 12 seats last night. In the other contests, there was no change in council control.
OK, it's coming up to 14 minutes past 6. Still to come tonight, we'll wrap up all the elections. Now then, let's begin a complete county-by-county roundup of all the election results in Essex. It was a bad night for Labour, who suffered significant losses there.
The Tories now hold all the seats in Essex except Colchester, which Bob Russell held for the Liberal Democrats. Here's Tom Barton.
The Tories' renewed dominance over the east of England continued in Essex. The first Labour loss to come in was the Basildon South and Thurrock East constituency. The Prime Minister's former parliamentary aide Angela Smith losing her seat to Conservative Stephen Metcalfe with a 7.5% swing.
Angela and I have got on very well over the last 3.5 years, but to get a change of government, you need to change MPs, and unfortunately Angela is one of those casualties.
Disappointment too for Armed Forces Minister Bill Rammell. He lost his seat in Harlow to Conservative Robert Halfon, who paid a warm tribute to the now former MP.
My disagreement with him is over politics. I pay tribute to the many years of public service he has given to Harlow and to the country, and I wish him and his family well.
The closest win came in Thurrock, with Jackie Doyle-Price taking the seat from Labour by just 92 votes. In Colchester, Bob Russell held on to his seat for the Liberal Democrats with 48% of votes. Simon Burns kept the Chelmsford seat for the Tories. The Conservatives also held on to their seats in 12 other constituencies, with Brooks Newmark, Eric Pickles, Rebecca Harris, Douglas Carswell, Eleanor Lang, Bernard Jenkin, John Whittingdale, Mark Francois, James Duddridge, David Amis, Alan Hazelhurst and Priti Patel being elected. A historic event in particular for Ms Patel, who, in the new seat of Witham, becomes the first Asian woman to become a Conservative MP. Tom Barton, Anglia News.
Well, like Essex, Suffolk too has seen changes, with its 2 Labour MPs losing out to the Conservatives.
There were swings above the national average in Ipswich and Waveney, which meant defeats for the Transport Minister Chris Mole and Bob Blizzard. Victoria Webb has all the details from there.
It was one of their key marginal seats, and as the votes came in at Waveney, the Conservatives' hopes of winning the country's most easterly constituency proved justified. Here, as in the rest of Suffolk, blue is now the colour of the political map. The county's 2 Labour seats both fell to the Conservatives. In Waveney, it spelled the end of Bob Blizzard's 13 years as an MP.
And I do hereby declare that Peter Alders is duly elected.
A majority of less than 1,000. For some, it was all too much.
People get one vote. They don't get a separate vote for their MP and another vote for, if you like, the national government. I tried to campaign on local issues, but it was very difficult this year to do that.
A lot of emotions flowing one way or the other, but when it comes down to it, it's an enormous privilege, enormous honour, and I'm conscious I've got a big duty ahead of me now.
Ipswich too has changed hands, but like Waveney, it was a close call. Ben Gummer's surprise at following his father John into Parliament was clear to see, as was the disappointment of Transport Minister Chris Mole. Elsewhere in Suffolk, the Conservatives held their 5 other seats, with Matthew Hancock, David Ruffley, Daniel Poulter, Theresa Coffey and Tim Yeo all elected, all with an increased majority. With a sea of blue now covering the county, the people of Waveney and Ipswich in particular will be waiting to find out how their new MPs measure up to the task ahead. Victoria Webb, Anglia News.
Well, it was a similar pattern that emerged in North